All right, we are back with episode 4. This is episode 4, yeah? It's crazy, time's flying. With one of my personal favorite patients, members, I could say human being, that
Thank you.
it's crazy to have you here on the Monarch Metamorphosis podcast, because we'll go into your journey here in a second, but about 5 years ago, one of our coaches just was from your hometown. You guys had moved here, just like, where can we go to take care of ourselves? And next thing you know, like, we've been through a lot in 5 years. Yeah, never would I have known that in 5 years I would have learned as much as I've learned about Gen Z and everything that your daughters are doing. But ultimately, it's been an incredible journey. So other than my family, to be honest, I see you probably more than anyone else. And I don't even see them that often. So you may have the number one spot. But it's an honor to have Heidi D'Amelio here, who is, I don't even think you can articulate in one word who you are, what you do. The matriarch of the D'Amelio family, one of our longest serving Monarch members, but ultimately a person who has done many different things in many different arenas throughout your life, from humble upbringings in the backwoods of Louisiana to the big city, the Big Apple, and many places in between. So it's an honor to have you here. Thank you for taking the time, because I know you're busy. And it's interesting because you're normally the one asking me questions. So this does feel very unique that I get to do this to you. So it's going to be an honor.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So first and foremost, I think people would be interested in knowing your journey, especially from a health and wellness standpoint. Just because you've done a lot of things. I've been to your guys' house to do God knows what over the last 5 years from a health standpoint. But there's a photo in, I think it's your bathroom, with you with a shaved head. And so there's been a lot of things that you've done in your life. So fill us in, where'd you come from? What was your lifestyle like? How'd you get to where you are today as a woman who's navigating, now you have adult kids, but you're super committed to taking care of yourself. That didn't just happen last couple of years. That's something that's been present for a long time, I would assume.
Yes. So I'm the fourth of 4 girls. My dad was an athlete. I think he probably would have loved to have enough boys to have a basketball team. And after 4 girls, it was just, we were just sports and dance. Dance is so big. I'm from Louisiana, and dance is very prevalent there. So my sisters and I always did sports and dance. And my mom was actually a great dancer, not technically, just social dancing. So, and then my dad was a boxer, great athlete. He's in Louisiana Boxing Hall of Fame. And, very humble and beginnings, and, but at the same time, we, had a big garden and grew our own food. And although we lived in Louisiana, where, you can imagine the food there, which is, I don't think anybody can deny, is amazing, but, a lot of food that is heavy, fried, things like that. My mom was not a fan of firing up a giant pot of grease to fry something. That was my dad's job, and it was rare. So I'm thankful for that. So it was pretty simple. The way we ate was just very simple. A lot of rice, because it was inexpensive, some sort of protein, and a vegetable. And that was just kind of our life. We ate a lot for 4 girls. We had a fast metabolism. My parents were tiny. My dad boxed in featherweight division, I believe. They were both just tiny, and we all ate. People were shocked at how much food we ate. It's just, I guess, had a lot to do with genetics, but we're all super, super active. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She was, cutting the grass. My parents didn't grow up in a generation where they like working out. My dad was an athlete, so you work out when you do that. And then he was physical after he was done boxing. And my mom was physical, whether it was gardening or, my dad's changing tiles on the roof or whatever it was. So I grew up with activity and busy and sports.
Yeah, I think that's an important, just pause moment there, because obviously, we're doing what we're doing with Monarch, and I believe in everything that we're doing. But I don't know if this type of thing would have worked back when you were growing up, because again, to your point, everyone was super active. You had to do things manually. We didn't have the issues that we have now. That's, very much a effect of this post-war, modern era of complete efficiency of everything. You don't have to lift a finger. You can just type Postmates, Uber Eats. That's been evolving since TV dinners in the early days. So I find it interesting because everyone talks about how everyone was a lot leaner and back in the day, even though you ate a ton of food, but I'm we also actually had to do things. You actually had to do work, not just sit on a computer. Is this work? Sure. But I think of work as actual energy expended, not just cognitive.
Sports through high school. My sisters were all amazing.
Were you homecoming queen?
No, I
Who
was
won?
not.
Are
my
you
friend,
upset about it?
No, it was
Okay.
amazing. I went to a really small school, so they were all my homies. And so that is true. Yeah, so fast forward, I graduate high school. I wanted to not, my high school track coach, I ran track, and I did high jump and long jump as well. And my high school coach wanted me to sort of get on track for college. We had a University of Louisiana in my hometown, and that terrified me. And I did not have the confidence that I could do it with going to school. I just couldn't put all of those thoughts together. And so I was I think I want to take a break on school. And so I just worked. My parents were you either have to go to school or you have to work. So I worked, and quickly after I graduated high school, I had the thought of, okay, I don't have sports. What am I going to do now? How does that, what do people do? I guess the thing is, people have to understand it was nothing like it is today. You weren't just, popping into a gym. Fortunately, in my hometown, we had, at the time, it was one of the top 10 gyms in the nation. Red Laurel's, it was amazing. And I joined there.
What?
Yeah.
In the nation?
In the nation. You can look it up. We're talking 1990, so anyway. But it's still beautiful and an incredible place. So
right.
I joined. It was for $42.50 a month, and
it's a lot of money back then.
it was for I worked at a video store.
Yeah.
So all of my friends were bodybuilders, and I didn't really know how to work out. I just did, whatever my track coach said to do. So I don't really know what I'm doing. And there was a women's side of the gym and then a co-ed side. And I was very skinny, and all I wanted was to have muscle. But I did not have the confidence to go on the co-ed side. So I would ask my bodybuilder friends, okay, what do I do? And they'd tell me a few things, and then I'd go on the women's side and I'd work out, because I just...
Can you talk about what was on the women's side that was different than the co-ed side?
It was smaller,
okay.
And it had everything.
Gotcha.
It just didn't have
extra space.
It was just
No men.
Apparently there were a lot of women like me that did not feel comfortable.
Yeah. I'm starting to see more women's only gyms pop up now. So they were way ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
They're all pink. It's a little bit in your face, but I get what they're, yeah. Was there a curtain? Did you just
No, it was a full, this place was
you
massive.
You just had to look from afar at the women on the other side. Can't go there. It's hot lava.
It was a whole, it was the women's side of the gym and the locker room, and all of that was on one side. The place was massive. So anyway, I did that for probably 6 months, and I had a little bit of confidence. So it was open till 10 o'clock at night. So I would go at 9 with my friends, and I started lifting, and I would just, I obviously could see what they were doing. They were lifting heavy weights. That's how I learned. So lift heavy weights, pretty much the basic. There wasn't any trends with that. I wanted muscle. All my friends had muscle, so I would just do what they do. So that's kind of how I started. with that. I never did cardio. It had a whole restaurant in the gym, so I would eat a massive burger right before I worked out. I don't know. When you're 19.
How much weight did you put on?
So it took me 10 years to put on 10 pounds.
No way.
I was 100 pounds when I started lifting.
You were 100 pounds? Good heavens. Should we ask what you weigh now, or is that off?
Sure.
Is that for the private podcast?
I think, honestly,
Patreon.
You could probably tell me. I don't weigh myself until we do that.
I think I remember. I don't remember off the top of my head. I just can't believe you were 100 pounds. Yep. That's crazy.
I was tiny. I had like Dixie's build.
Okay.
Interesting. That was my build. Super tiny.
How did you get from there to New York? Because that's a pretty big jump.
Yes. So
plus into like fitness modeling. So
I was the whole time, right after I finished high school and I started lifting weights, I started modeling. And I was, believe it or not, there was a lot of modeling going on in Louisiana. There was definitely, between my hometown in Lafayette and New Orleans, I was always going back and forth and doing that. Mind you, this is at a time of the supermodel of very, very, very thin women. And I wasn't big by any means, but you could see a little bit of muscle. And that was problematic at the time. And I didn't care. I was like, I'm not going to not work out, because the bigger goal, as much as I wanted to model, the bigger goal was I wanted to be strong and I wanted to have muscle and I wanted it to show. So I moved to New York City. My friend and I went for a visit, and then on the flight back, she was like, do you want to move? And I was like, I knew it was a now or never kind of thing. So I was like, let's go. We'll figure it out. So got an apartment. I was supposed to be working in a modeling agency. I show up, and the guy that was we were all set. We just need to have like a formal meeting. And he was out scouting for the next 3 months. And I was like,
oh no,
that was going to be my job. And I thought working in a modeling agency, it would, you know. So I go home, I'm devastated, go to the apartment, and I'm telling my roommates, and she goes, well, rent's due, so you need to get a job. And I was like, well, I need a gym membership. So again, I'm 25 at the time, very immature, naive 25-year-old. And so, I don't have a job and I need to pay rent, but I need a gym membership, my priority. So I started in the phone book looking at gyms, and they were like $1,000 a month up front.
Crazy.
And I'm like, that was as devastating as not having a job, the job that I thought I was going to have when I got there. So my friend was like, oh, I work at a gym. If you get a job there, you can work out for free. Perfect. So got a gym, World Gym. I got a job at World Gym right in Lincoln Center. And I was doing that and modeling at the same time.
Yeah.
And I kind of just did my own thing. I worked at the front desk. And then when I would work out, people were always asking me questions. And I'm like, I don't know. I just do what I know how to do. I wasn't like a teacher. And also that wasn't my job. And so I ended up getting certified to become a trainer. And I started doing that, which I did love. But I just realized, and I guess it was kind of that change from small town Louisiana to New York City, so many changes. But one thing was, people there were so, my clients, they wanted, okay, so I had a bagel for breakfast. So now what do I do? In the gym to come, I'm like, wait, this is bigger than that. It's like an overall, we can't go meal to meal. You have to and I remember being so, I didn't even know how to explain that, because it wasn't a thing at the time. Everything was very disconnected.
Yeah.
As far as wellness and health. So that was really hard.
Yeah. And oddly enough, not much has changed. We still struggle with the same questions. It's just we have more technology to try to articulate or display why we're not doing very well. But not much has changed. I can tell you that for sure.
So it's kind of like the beginning. Then met Mark, got married, moved to Connecticut, had my 2 daughters, stay-at-home mom. That's what I wanted to do from as far back as I can remember. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I said, I'm going to put, whenever I'm my kids' lunch, I'm going to get back into modeling in my 50s or 60s, whatever that means. And
so you've passed that time. So
you're so
kidding.
funny. But I knew enough to know that working out, even though because I left my whole working out environment and job. I'm living in Connecticut. I'm not starting over being a trainer in Connecticut when I knew like we were going to start having kids. So I was like, can't do that. So I joined a gym and I would work out. And I knew enough at this point where I could like get really good workouts, always lift heavy, and I got into boxing as well. So that was like kind of my thing. And then it's just always been something I loved. And I feel like people are like, it's not fair. Like, you actually love working out. What about for someone who doesn't? I think going back to the reason I started, I don't know if it's being in Louisiana. I was around a lot of people who were older. And, at every event, wedding, get together, the older generation was there. And I saw what that looked like. And as much as I wanted to gain muscle and be strong, I wanted that when I was in my 80s to be able to have the muscle to hold myself up and pick things up. I remember thinking that in 1990.
Yeah.
And none of that has changed.
Yeah. No. That's brilliant. Like you're just so far ahead of the curve. And like when you talk about that critical juncture where you're like, I either have no home or I have no gym membership. Like I need to find a gym membership. Like I've experienced that many times, which is like, no matter where I go, where I travel, like one of the first things I'm doing is like, where can I go like work out? Like, even if I'm not sightseeing, I was like, I want to make sure I get my workout in. So we share a similar energy there. It's probably why we get along so well, more than anything. But I think too, like it's that motivation, like, who knows where it came from? Like, why did you think that way? Why did you feel that way, especially when you were faced with like serious life decisions? Maybe it's, like you said, the environment around you. I think for a lot of us, like, we just see that people, as they get older, they become grandpa in the chair, and like, that's just, they're taking their nap and then they kind of hang out and they're taking up space, but they're not really contributing to what's happening around them. And I agree. Like, I vehemently believe that we don't have to age like that. We can do it differently. But we have to start now. You have to start when you're 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s and beyond. And I think that leads into my next question, which is like, you have two daughters, and I'm always interested because I'm at the age now where pretty much everyone of my friends has kids or will soon have kids. I've got to balance it out. I have 0. So like for every, trying to keep the average low. But I'm always interested to see how people end up becoming as parents and like what they allow, what they don't allow. My mother was very much like yours growing up, where it was very simple. She worked a lot. So like our food was crock pot. She tried to make it as healthy as possible. Like we had Diet Right instead of Coke, which I like is so embarrassed that like my friends couldn't get a Coca-Cola in my house, but like my mom just was like vehemently opposed. How do you think that your upbringing, your decision-making influenced you as a mother, especially with Charlie and Dixie? Because I know Dixie BMX, Charlie dance, like everyone, I don't know if a lot of people knew Dixie's a BMXer, but like they know who they are. How did that impact you as a mom, bringing them up, like your lifestyle into what you were doing? And did you feel any dissonance with moms around you in the area? You're like, why are you doing that? Why are your kids like, I'm always interested.
So I don't know, just growing up in Louisiana, everybody's kids are involved in something, and it was usually either sports or dance. BMX came into play. Mark was a BMX racer growing up, and we went to watch a nationals in Connecticut, and Dixie was 5, and she was like, I want to do that. She was playing soccer, and I think she tried basketball, put them in everything, see what sticks. And I don't know. I don't know if it was they saw their cousins doing all the things, or everybody in Connecticut, they were doing something, but for whatever reason, my kids are super competitive. I don't know where they get that from, but they no, not from you. But so they wanted to do well. Dixie would play soccer. At 4 and 5 years old, they're like running around, and she's like, "Okay, I'm gonna make so many goals today." And whenever she saw BMX, she was like, "Oh, I could just do something that just depends on me. Like it doesn't matter, what anybody else is doing." At 5 years old, like she knew enough to know that, and she wanted to be a part of that. So. And then, I don't know, I feel like no matter what sport or type of thing your kids are in, we were all in. We were going to do it. We're going to do it as a family. We ended up traveling the country. She became 5th in the nation by 8 years old. And it was just a wild ride, but it was family. It was all based in family and spending time together. And it was just a lot of, if you ask her, the memories of the races and the winning isn't here. It's the time we all spent together. And I feel like we did that with dance too, which was where Charlie leaned into and really loved. And we traveled and we went to competitions and did the whole thing. So I feel like although they were young and it was a competitive world they were both in, it was more about family and us all embracing whatever it is you're excited about. So that was just kind of became part of their growing up, not even pushing. It wasn't even us pushing, okay, BMX season is over, what's next? The girls wanted to do, Dixie was very good about trying things. It didn't matter if any of her friends were going to be there, she tried everything. At some point I remember telling her, we have to pare down. There's not enough physical time in the day to get you to all of these things. And, she was a good student. Like there was nothing really lacking, but I'm like, maybe let's do a little bit less. So they were very driven and wanted to do well. They wanted to do well for their coaches. They wanted to do well for their dance teachers. And that was just kind of, that was who they were or were becoming. And then we had our own garden at the house and, having them be a part of that. Like I felt a lot of what they grew up with, but fast forward all those years.
There's an Instagram account called Source Messages that one of the posts recently was talking about how like, if you would have tried to imagine where you are in this moment a couple years ago, like it would have been impossible. So just, keeping that in mind, imagine where we'll be in 5 years. Like, who knows? Like, it's going to be amazing. So everyone knows your family story for the most part. And it went 0 to 100. Like literally a nascent platform catapulted you guys to something that I cannot imagine you guys could have ever thought was something prominent. And with that, cross-country move, new city, new opportunities. How have you as a mom, a businesswoman, someone who's, creating, something that's never been done in a field that's like so new, what have been the hardest things? I'm going to take like a health angle from you. Like what's been the hardest for you to like feel like you can maintain what makes you you? So whether that's food or sleep or whatever, like what has that transition been like? Because like I filmed a commercial yesterday and I'm doing a podcast today. I'm like, damn, that's a lot of talking, like you guys have been doing this for 5 years.
When this happened with our family, Charlie went viral July of 2019. And then by the end of October, she had hit 1 million followers on TikTok. Then Dixie got on. And through November, December, they were gaining 1 million followers a day. Like you can't even imagine that many people in one place. So we ended up moving to LA. Dixie was pretty much done with high school. Pandemic hits, everybody's online. no real reason to be in Connecticut. Everything was happening here. So we moved. And besides all of that public facing change, I wasn't driving my kids to school or to practice, dance. I wasn't making school lunches or after school food prep. Everything about my life changed. You know, I was a stay-at-home mom. After we were here, probably not even a year, Dixie, you know, she was 18, graduated high school. She moved out into an apartment, you know, so it all fast-tracked. There was no like easing into my life as a stay-at-home mom. And so the way I cooked was different. Everybody was kind of ordering in, and I just, everything I knew, all of my, I had like one friend here that I was close with. No, not you. And her name's Erica. And I just kind of leaned on her because she's from here. And but again, it was the pandemic and we couldn't really do anything. On the flip side is we had 2 young girls in LA that was shut down, which was not like, if you have to have like a easing into moving to LA, I guess we had that, which was fortunate. So, you know, I still tried to maintain the food. I went through a transition. I was still trying to I love to food prep. I was still trying to do that, at least for myself. And then I found Monarch. And so that gave me some stability. And then I have a really bad thing about myself where I'm either all in or all out. Yeah. And so once I joined Monarch, I was like, okay, I can be all in now with food, hydration, like just everything. And so that changed that. So that was August of 2020. So we were here not that long when we moved, I think May of 2020. So yeah, I was crazy. Kind of flailing along until I joined Monarch. And then I was like, okay, I feel like I'm grounded here. Like I can kind of streamline things a little bit better.
How do you feel now compared to then in terms of, because like it's changed. Like I remember, I was thinking about this the other day when I was at the airport. Like Charlie at one point had a drink, not a healthy drink. For the record, I said my piece. But every Dunkin' Donuts on the planet, like that's insane. And that almost seems like, that was like 5 years. That was like 3 years ago. Like, how do you feel now, from a emotional standpoint, like a self-care standpoint, and even if you want to like speak on behalf of your family a little bit, like 5 years into this journey, like where are you guys at now? Like honestly, you know.
Well, I think a little bit of what the girls went through. They were used to me cooking every night. They knew the choices, the food choices that were in our house. I tried to have a nice balance between cooked foods and fun snacks that were still like not worst case. We had our garden, we had our own chickens, we got eggs from that. And then we moved, and I think it felt a little bit like that time when they go off to college and like they're eating crazy and doing all these things.
That's true.
So I feel like a little bit of that happened. And it wasn't like we had a household where like, you can't have soda. It's just like, I don't know, I'd buy ginger ale sometimes. Like it wasn't like this hard rule. I had a lot of really good food that I would provide for them. And, you know, I'm sure they go to wherever, McDonald's with their friends. Like it wasn't that, you know, but I'm going to fast forward all this time we've been here. Right now, currently, they've come back around to saying things like, I realized like how much better I felt when I was eating more balanced meals and the protein. And to hear those words coming out of their mouths, Charlie cooks a lot, I know.
Round of applause.
Charlie loves to cook. She doesn't have a ton of time, but even now, she's on Broadway. Even now, in her time that she is available, she cooks. She cooks. She'll do she likes her chicken that she grills, and she'll do a little rice, or, pretty balanced for her. She's a little bit pickier, but experimenting more is kind of opening that a little bit more. Dixie's eats a lot more of everything, but just, cooking more and being, putting the value in what they're putting in their body. I did not think that was going to happen so soon. So I'm very proud of that.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking back, like, it's got to be tough. Like when my mom and dad sent me off to school, I had like a dorm meal points. So like, yeah, they had shitty food, but like, at least it was like, that's what I got. Like you didn't have this. Can you imagine being a kid with like a lot more money than we had, who just had like unlimited delivery options? So looking back, like I can't blame them, for like doing what they do. And I'm sure you can't blame yourself. Like it's impossible, but I knew at some point they would come back around. So I'm glad that that's finally happened, because they're definitely more mature, which is a testament to you and Mark, like than most. I don't know how old are they, 19 and 21?
20 and 23.
Shut up. They're 20. Dixie's 23. Fuck. It's been a long time.
That means you missed her birthday and you owe her a gift.
Yeah. No surprise there.
And also with that is, they don't say it to me. It's not like we have deep conversations about this, but I hear them in interviews or telling other people about, my mom just our whole lives, she's been so consistent. Like she's a beast in the gym. Like she never misses. She's so on it with her food. And I was like, okay, at least they were paying attention. Because I think as parents, you do all the things, you try to lead by example and hope for the best. And I'm like, all right, at least they were paying attention and they did notice. Because you can't, even as parents, like you can't force people to work out. They had a lifestyle that, they were in sports and dance, but post that, you can't force somebody to do it, and you just hope you set a good example. They see I'm rarely sick. My energy level is, I can run circles around them, all of that. They are seeing that, and already at 20 and 23, and they're, it's like, okay, I know I have those genetics I could do that too. So they're starting to get there.
So that leads me into my next question, which is, we are in the midst of something that I have a little bit of mixed feelings about, which is like weight loss. Pervasive, right? Especially out here. For someone who has done what you've done in the crucible for which like you've had to do it, like when you guys make mistake, when I make mistake, a small number of people give a shit. When you guys make a mistake, it's millions of people. And I have seen, it's public knowledge, like that is very tough, especially on parents, for kids. Like you guys have had to like really have your entire lives under a microscope, and yet you still show up and you're super consistent. So my question coming off of what you just shared was like, for women who are late 30s to, almost sending their kids out of the house, they either have little time, they think they have little time, or they're about to have a lot of time and they don't know what to do with it. What would your, like, if you just like gut checked and said, hey, like, this is how I've lived, like, this is what I would recommend to other women in this phase? Because not only do you have like the family stuff, hormones are a real challenge to navigate through. And I don't think men understand enough, like, how problematic that can be. So like, if you had a room full of women, which is like, hey, this is what I've done, or this is what I would recommend, like, what are your big, tent pole things that, you're gonna stick with no matter what moving forward?
I feel like I did go through this time while we were here because we were so busy that it would just, there's actually the gym. By the time I could get there, the gym was going to be closed. So there was no physical time in the day I could get there. And
No, time out. We're going to talk
Hold
about
on,
this.
wait.
No.
I knew you were going to catch me on that.
Yeah. Because it's a thing.
Without like overwhelming me in a way that I didn't feel was going to be beneficial. That's how I felt at the time. Whether that is true or not, I don't know. But
can I peel back the curtain a little bit? We've had a lot of conversations with your team, primarily around the girls more than anything. But like we've said multiple times, like you have to schedule this in the day.
That's what I was going to say.
You have to schedule it in the day, especially if you're busy. And like it's a non-negotiable because it's so good for you. And I'll be honest, didn't really happen often.
So at the beginning, that was a major problem. And our schedule would be insane for the day. And every day I would go to bed and be so bummed out. I was like, another day. I did nothing to contribute to the one thing I want to, more than anything, is to myself. And it's kind of one of those things that I was just feeling a lot of frustration. I couldn't really put my finger on it. And I was like, that's the thing. I figured it out in therapy. But that was the one thing. I had other people were controlling how I, moved my body and pushed myself in the gym. So I'm like, okay, team meeting. This goes on the calendar first. Everything works around it. So my advice would be to prioritize it. I mean, anything we focus on we're going to do well in that area. And that, I think, to me, is, and whether you've done it and you agree or you haven't done it and you're skeptical, there's not a doubt if you prioritize your health, everything else in your life is going to get better. And so to put it on the calendar and nothing, it gets moved for nothing. That is probably my biggest piece of advice. And then you have people whose schedules are busy. And then you have people who are going to be empty nesters and they do have an abundance of time, which is an emotional trip in itself of what are you feeling like? Your purpose as a mom is different now. And what does that look like? And there's going to be nothing for your mental health than go and sweat and move some weight around. I promise you that. And so also in that, to find your people. And I know we talk about this all the time, to find your community. And I'm so proud. I have a group of friends back in Norwalk. Our kids are all the same ages. They're all launched. And it's been probably over a year now. They've been going to this gym and talk about what a sense of community. I've gone there before. And it's all these, we're all friends from our kids being in school together, and what that they have created there. Great job to the gym, great job to all of them, because they're holding each other accountable, and when you don't show up, you're not getting beat up for it. You're like, come on, let's rally the next day, So I'm so excited to see that. And I think you can find that anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, like selfishly, what we've created with Monarch is like, it's community. I've said it before and I'm not ashamed. Like not everyone achieves all the goals they want to achieve, and that's multifactorial. But what we do have is like a place that at least you're going to show up, you're going to be guided in a good direction, and it's going to help no matter what, if you're having good days, bad days, or anything in between. And I do find that kind of like that self-sacrifice aspect of like parenthood. So I was thinking back, like I'm fortunate too that I had good role models. Like my dad was super fit. My mom ran all the time. But she had to get up like 5 a.m. before she took the 6 a.m. train. And what did that sacrifice mean? Is like, well, we're going to do a lot of crock pot stuff, and we're going to do a lot of like taco nights and sloppy joes, because like she went into the city of Chicago, came, like she's trying to do everything. And like, I'm just a kid. I'm like, our food sucks. I don't think no offense, my mom sadly passed away, so she's definitely listening. I didn't have a real vegetable until I got moved out to Colorado. Everything was frozen. So she did the best she could. But like those are the decisions that you have to make. And I think, I agree with you, for women navigating work, motherhood, all those things, like you just have to take care of yourself. You are resilient, but if you do not take time for yourself, everything else is going to get worse. So something
else I used to do that would help keep things on track on the food side. also we didn't have a lot of money. So, Mark had started his business. And so what I would do is we would get together. Okay, these are all the things that we all like to eat, all the different kinds of dinners. And then we go on Sundays. Okay, let's pick out for the week. This is, everybody picks, let's have this on Monday. Let's have this on Tuesday, whatever. Then I would grocery shop according to that. So I had very little waste at the end of the week. Everything got eaten, and it was better to stay on track. It took time to do that, but we did it as a family, which is super helpful. I still have some of those spreadsheets that we make, and they had drop downs like, Charlie, these are the things she likes, because I was trying to expand what she liked to eat. And it's just those little things as a mom that you can do, because you need to navigate the time that you're trying to take for yourself, the time that you're giving to your family, and you want to give them food that's nutritious, but it doesn't take you a lot of time. And I do think probably now more than when you were a kid, there's so many more options to do that.
An interesting segue, and then I'll go into my final home run question, because I'm actually interested. I have a colleague, which we should talk about outside of this, he's got an interesting group. It's essentially like a fund that's going to invest in products that are really good for you, but not the most exceptional, because I think there is a gap, and especially for parents
100%.
where they want to get the best of the best, but it's either too expensive or it's not in Louisiana. And even, distribution of really, really healthy stuff is very, very hard. I've learned that with helping groups out from the CPG side. So he's basically I'm just going to invest in things that are really good, probably not the best, but not terrible, because I think there's a huge gap there. And I especially think for parents,
I love that.
Right. It's pretty good,
Yeah. Because I remember having those thoughts, the stuff at the farmers markets that you would we couldn't afford that.
Yeah.
But I knew what I didn't want, and there wasn't an in between.
Yeah. It's just and it was an interesting premise, because I was everyone wants to be exceptional. I think that we tend to surround ourselves. We have a high concentration of people that want to be successful in LA. There's a lot of people that just a little bit better would go a long way. So it's an interesting thought. We'll talk about it offline. But the one thing that I ask everyone who comes on here is, looking back down the road, if you could say, hey, I hope that I have this impact on people, and it can be anything. I'm kind of hoping to understand, I think it'll be health and wellness related, but I also think there's a family component. Not to put words in your mouth, but if at some point, you have the opportunity to say, hey, this was a life well lived, what would you like people to, think about everything that you're doing as a mom, as part of the, the leader of the D'Amelio family? What would that look like?
Well, one thing that leads into that is what I've learned so much, and we've talked about this at Monarch, is how connected everything is. In your wellness, it's not physical therapies over there and your blood work's over there and the gym is there. It is all one. I mean, I'm very lucky to be able to go to Monarch, but just to have that thinking, because even before we moved here, for years, I've been feeling how everything was so disconnected. And I kind of, even when I thought about my own health, didn't put oh, well, this could be causing this. And I think that to think that way is just how much more connected we should be thinking that we are. That should be a priority. And I feel like investing in yourself, the time into focusing on yourself and your emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, is going to give back so much more. And I feel like I try to do that. And I feel like I'm living a life that, at least I know my kids, I don't know about my following, will say, she did all the things to be the best version of herself. And it starts in the gym and it bleeds over to your emotional well-being and your spirituality and all of that. So I feel like that would be my answer.
Well, thank you for taking the time to come out here. I know you're busy. It's been incredible to see what you guys are doing, you as a person, your family. I'm grateful to contribute in whatever way I can for however much people listen. I feel like you're a listener. I still have to talk to Charlie and Dixie about that, but it's amazing what you guys have done, and I'm excited to see like what we create in the future, because like I have no plans on stopping. You guys have no plans on stopping, so we may be friends for a very long time. So I know, exciting.
I don't know if